So, our third lesson is what is meditative and non meditative state. So, before I take up that, it is good to find out how to help our emotional mind and the intellectual mind, because that will also clear the topic with reference to the previous two lessons. So, the seeker, the four factors are important. That seeker in us, when it follows the four connections and the sadhan chatushtaya, the fourfold practices, that seeker reaches to a state not being influenced by the outer circumstances, events happening. That is the highest level of a seeker. That is the first factor we should understand and keep in mind. The second factor is the instrument of knowledge. And what is that instrument of knowledge? Is the Eastern wisdom. My eyes are the instruments that sees you clearly. Can I see you? My seeker inside answers. I want to see Casey. I want to see X. I want to see Paul. I want to see Priscilla. And the eyes are already open, and I'm aware. I have a knowledge. I have an experience. So eyes act as an instrument of knowledge to see the world outside. So their Eastern wisdom is an instrument of knowledge that perceives my real nature. I have understood it intellectually. I believe it, I trust it, but I don't see. I have to pay more attention to this challenge that instrument of knowledge is present with me, but still I don't see. But then what I have to see is the third factor. What is the third factor? Is the object of knowledge. So my eyes are instrument of knowledge. You are an object. So I can see you instantly. There is no issue unless some dust particle enters into my eyes and then I clean it. Same way, what is that object of knowledge? My essence, my true nature, which is always full of permanent peace, truth, pure awareness, love, and wisdom. Every human being, no doubt how great or small one is, always seeking the benefit. So, what is the result? Is the fourth factor. What is the benefit of awakening? What is the benefit of meditation? What is the benefit of following the path? End of suffering and awaken to the permanent state of the peace and happiness. So, these are the four factors must be understood in line with sadhan chatushtaya, the fourfold practices. So, in the last second lesson, we understood darshan. Eastern wisdom is a darshan. It is a right perception, it is a right knowledge. To further qualify darshan, It is a direct perception. My mind sees you through sense organ. It is in direct perception. So now the self is self luminous like the sun. So the self perceives the self in the mind. So I know the self and I find out my own nature and I enter into permanent peace and happiness. So the masters, some of the masters and majority of the masters starts the journey by explaining Heya, Hetu, Han, Hanopaya. Because if the mind and the intellect gets a true perspective, what is suffering Heya? What is the cause of suffering Hetu? What is the absence of suffering? Is there any state which is absence of suffering? And what are the means? And Patanjali has laid down clearly a select sutras to explain what is the cause of the suffering, what is what is suffering, what is the cause of suffering, what is the absence of suffering. So you can equate it with the Buddha. Buddha says nothingness. Patanjali says absence of suffering. There is a state that is devoid of all the contents of the mind, niruddha state. And then Hanopaya, there is a way, there is a process, there is a method. Now, how, if I want to summarize fourfold connection, four fundamentals, and sadhan chatushtaya, I would say practically, even though fourfold connections and the fourfold practices is very practical. The more we grow into that, we become a seeker. Now let us take it practical. Yoga, meditation, Patanjali Yoga. Why? What is the benefit? What is the goal? So, in a simple terms, we can say we awaken to the knowledge of reality, or we can say end of suffering, we can say self discovery, we can say permanent peace and happiness. So, let us take one definition by which we move ahead. What is the benefit? Awaken to the knowledge of reality. Again, pay attention, knowledge of reality. Realities is my essential nature and the knowledge. So, where the knowledge is happening, where knowledge, all knowledge happens, it happens in the mind. Every knowledge takes place in the mind. Mind gives the knowledge of freedom. Mind gives me the knowledge that now there is an end of suffering as an experience, as a state of consciousness. I already know it intellectually. I have read it, I have studied. But then why there is no end of suffering? Because the mind is impure and not able to comprehend that reality. So, what we need to have a spatial state of the mind, we need an relaxed, steady mind. But how can I have a relaxed and steady mind? I'm just combining everything. So you have to go through it again and again and again and pick up where comes the four connections and where comes fourfold practices. So what we need to have the mind. So our we pay more attention. The mind should be relaxed and calm. It should continue to have the six inner treasures. It should live with viveka and vairagya, or discernment, that we have already covered a couple of times. But we ignore the body. We need a body to work through the mind. Body needs to be respected with reference to the goal in the mind. So, what? We need to have a body? Yes. And in order to have a body, what we need? We need some money to maintain that body. I'm making it a very practical. I need money to feed it, to shelter it, to care it. What we need for money? Either karma, we have to act as a professional, as a self employed, or I should live as a monk. So, in ancient days, the monk was defined that he has minimized his necessity from the external world and he is not employed. So, the householder who is professional, who is doing karma, must spare some money so that he can maintain his livelihood and continue the journey of evolution and transformation. We are not going there. So now we are coming back that I'm a professional, I have to act, I have to work. But karma, but karma, as a professional person, creates likes and dislikes, creates attachment and detachment, creates craziness and obsession. Why and what should we do? So we started our journey. What is the benefit? Awaken to the knowledge of the reality. Where in the mind? So I need the mind. Mind should be pure, relaxed, and steady. But in order to have the mind, what I need a body. Body has to need a shelter and care and the feeding. I need to work. So I need to work at the professional level or I work as a monk. So, but when I work as a professional level, I'm guided by likes, dislikes, attachment, detachment, duality, and a conflict in daily activities in my profession. I'm covering sadhan chatushtaya, the fourfold practices, in a very practical way. So, karma, then what should I do? Here the master says, what the master says? Karma. What is karma? I'm a householder, so I have a family at home, people at work, people outside. So, what should I do? So, the master says, every teacher says, you cannot live without action, you cannot live without karma. So, what should we do? We do all the karma to purify our mind. We should do karma to purify our mind. Means whatever I can do with proficiency, I must focus on the karma rather than the fruits of an action and rather than building an ego that I can do this. So, what will happen? How it can happen? When we follow fourfold practices, the mind awakens that how to perform the karma for the sake of karma, not for the sake of fruits of an action. So then what happens? Mind remains pure, fresh, cheerful, happy to treat the path. But, but it is not happening. Recently, you just explaining an event has taken place, and you told me I'm crying. I don't want to show you my crying. But I know I have to do karma minus the fruits of an action in my mind. What is that cause? What is that? So, why the hell awakening is not there with me? I don't know. I live a conditioned life, and that conditioned mind overvalues many things and acts in the life in relationship to the world outside. So, the moment I value anything in the world outside, which is constantly changing, I'm still giving a value to the things outside. It creates likes and dislikes, attachment and detachment in daily life. Some people, you see how we value the world outside. Some people I don't like to talk. Other people I like to talk. Some food I like, some food I don't like. Some people I like, some people I dislike. I'm giving a value to the people, object, and the things. I may study fourfold connections intellectually, I understand that no change will happen at any point because I'm giving a value. So now what happens? I got my wires crossed. So when I give value, then what happens? The habitual romance to the things, object, and the people outside continues. And that romance pushes my mind to think, and think. I'm always thinking. I'm worried, I'm concerned. So, that very collective thinking is known as sankalpa. Perhaps you may recall we have studied Amrit Bindu Upanishad, the very first verse. Mano hi dividham proktam shuddham ashuddhamev cha. Ashuddham kama sankalpam, the impure mind has a desire and has a sankalpa, that constant thinking in the mind. Of what? Of the world outside. Why? Because I gave value to it. That value cannot be eliminated without the regular practice of sadhan chatushtaya. And we cannot become a seeker. We may spend 10 years or 15 years, and the intellect will claim, yes, intellect will definitely claim that I have achieved, and we fall back. Now, let me make a very simple statement of that sankalpa. Sankalpa for the world outside, expectation and dependency on the world outside. If that sankalpa changes inside, dependency and expectations from my real self, from the existence, from the Satchidanand, the life is going to change from today. So, claiming that we are a seeker, claiming huh, that we are a seeker. The first chapter of Patanjali is for the seeker alone. Seeker level 1. Teacher is teaching. So seeker is listening from one ear, it goes out from the other ear. Seeker level 1. Seeker level 2, listening, and it stucks here. And intellectual understanding is there. So that intellectual understanding is thrown out. We try to impose on others. Third level of the seeker. Now, third level of the seekers listens from both the ears. It goes into the head and contemplation continues until that knowledge descends down into the heart, emotionally charged. And now I'm inspired to apply that in my life. Lot of thoughts, collective thinking, which I said sankalpa. Sankalpa leads to desire, and the desire leads to problems and the suffering. We have explained that we have understood the entire chain. Sankalpa, because value. So now that value, instead of giving a value to the world outside at any cost with reference to any person, object in the world outside, now that value is shifting inside, makes you a seeker. That is the level third. So, because in order to move to the level third, what helps sadhan chatushtaya? So now we have four verses. First four verses summarizes the entire yoga in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Ath Yoganushasanam. Ath Yoganushasanam. We have understood in the lesson 1 and 2 that these are zip files. It needs to be unzipped. But who is going to unzip? Commentator. From there we get the knowledge. Not only the commentator, but the critical commentary, so that it gives me a clear understanding of these sutras, these compressed files. Literal translation, Athiyoga Nushasanam. Now the discipline of yoga begins. So if I take a literal translation, English translation, I said, okay, now this is the meaning. So let me go to the second sutra. What is the discipline? So it says yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the emptiness of the mind. Okay. Okay, I have understood it. Emptiness of the mind. I have understood. So what is the result? And now the third sutra leads to a lot of confusion. Now I am established in my real nature. What? On one hand, I am emptying the mind. On the other hand, I settle into my real nature. What is this? So, sutra means that every sutra is very well connected. First sutra is connected to second, second to the third, third to the fourth. So, we don't see that connection when we simply study and my intellect claims I have understood yoga, Ati Yoga Nushasanam. So yoga is a union, I have understood. So leaving those popular notions, let us understand, let us read it first what the commentary, what Ved Vyasa, the commentator says, as it is. I translate it as it is. The word atha here means undertaking a study of the subject. A Yoga Sutra giving a revised critical teaching of yoga is to be understood as having been undertaken. So, if you can go through it, now in the third sentence, it blows our mind. What Vyasa says, yoga is samadhi. Yoga is samadhi. It blew our mind further when it says it is characteristic of the mind pervading in all its states. Am I crying? Am I in samadhi? Yes. Am I in yoga? No. You see, that is the meaning. Without paying a proper attention, understanding is not clear. So now what it says, it is the characteristics of the mind. I'm tweaking certain things. What it means, characteristics of the mind. So where there is a mind, there is samadhi. What? I'm crazy. Am I in samadhi? Yes. Am I in yoga? No. Is Arizona USA? Yes or no? No. Is USA Arizona? Yes. Yes or no? That is the it blows my mind when I studied it almost 20, 25 years ago. So what it says, we will understand that the subjective states, it says that it is characteristic of the mind pervading in all its states. The subjective states of the mind are fivefold: wandering, forgetfulness, obsessed, one pointedness, and emptiness. Then further he says, out of the five states of samadhi, yoga is not accomplished in the first three states because of the mind running after the objects. So what it is says, that the mind can be in the state of mindfulness even for a fraction of a second. But that is not yoga. What is yoga? Yoga can happen only in the last two states of the mind that we are going to open up the way Vyasa explains. So then he says that yoga is possible in the last two states of the mind. What are those two subjective states of the mind? It is known as ekagrata, ekagravastha, and niruddhavastha. Niruddha literally translation as emptiness. We will also go through deeply and understand it. Then the Vyasa says what Patanjali is explaining in the first sutra, that the fourth state of the mind begins the journey of mindfulness or meditation, and we have four stages of meditation or mindfulness. And the fifth state leads to the highest state of mindfulness. This is, in brief, what Vyasa has commented on the first sutra. So now let us take step by step. Vyasa reveals the true meaning of yoga in the sutra. The mind has five subjective states. It is wandering. The mind is constantly wandering. You'll be surprised in the following sutras, the way the Vyasa has given a commentary. He says there is a positive wandering state and there is a negative wandering state. He has gone so deeper. It means I must continue with the positive wandering state and I must reject the negative wandering state. So that is the first state that we will understand gradually. Second state, subjective state, he says forgetfulness, mudha, dictated and guided by the tamas, fancies and imagination. Third state is getting obsessed with something. That is why I started with that sankalpa, collective thinking pertaining to the world outside. That thinking, collective thinking, is already in our mind. It is living in my mind. The intellect on the top says, no, no, I'm not influenced by anything what is happening outside. But I'm already influenced because of the collective thinking, because of my worries, because of my anxiety. So that is obsessed. Fourth is ekagra. Ekagra avastha, one pointedness with reference to a qualified seeker. If I'm a qualified seeker, I am already one pointed. And the fifth one is totally not emptiness of the mind. These are the five states. One thing to understand. Out of the five states, so these five states are alternating at every moment in my life. The moment I wake up, I may have few seconds of first subjective state, maybe 10 seconds of second, 15 seconds of third, or maybe 10 seconds of the fourth state, or maybe a fraction of a second of emptiness. So it means these five states constantly alternates in my mind. Means I live constantly in five subjective states. Clear. Now, if the first subjective state is dominating, take an example, if it is 50% one and it lives for an extended period of time for a minute, the other four states live for a few seconds, then what I say to myself, I'm depressed, a lot of anxiety, a lot of thoughts are coming. I feel discomfort, I've been overworking, I have been busy. So, with that reference, we can conclude what Patanjali is saying and what Vyasa is saying. What Vyasa is saying? Moving towards meditation or mindfulness means minimizing the frequency of repetition of the first three states of the mind and increasing the period where the mind continues to live in the fourth and the fifth state, not only at the time of practice of meditation, but 24 by 7. And who will support 24 by 7? It is four connections and sadhan chatushtaya, the fourfold practices. While listening, if you find that these are important, so you can put it into this chapter. But what happens in the fourth and the fifth state? The sato guna becomes dominant in the mind. Sato guna is natural state of the mind. What the sato guna does? Knowledge and happiness. Knowledge and happiness. So how come that knowledge? Knowledge of what? Knowledge of the reality. So the mind qualifies, it is a seeker, it understands the importance of satoguna that moves the mind with the knowledge and happiness. That is the characteristics of the fourth state of the mind. So another word that is Vyasa and the Patanjali uses, so I want to use it. The moment we reach into the fourth state of the mind, we are already into a mindfulness state with an object of meditation. So, with any object of meditation, practice done in the fourth state is known as sampragyat meditation. Sampragyata. Pragya means object. Means in my meditation, I have an object of meditation. That we will understand later what are the objects. And when you add a, awesome pragyat, so it is opposite. Now the highest state of meditation takes place in the fifth state of the mind without an object. That is known as asampragyat meditation or mindfulness. Sampragyat meditation, they have four stages. But before that, at least we should live as a seeker. So, what is that? A state poised by the inner treasures that we may also say as the beginning of a meditation. Now, sometimes I say beginner's guide to mindfulness. So, I don't talk about those fourfold connections and the six treasures, but I introduce that. I introduce those things. So, going ahead, I have covered that great master Vyasa unzips the Yoga Sutra. And that is very clear. You can go through it. Now, see that some of the modern authors translate the sutra that does not convey the essence of the sutra. What it says now, yoga is being explained. But what Vyasa says, it doesn't cover. Now, an exposition or instructions on teachings of yoga. Now, the concentration is explained. One American author translates the first sutra. Now, the concentration is explained. So, it means I have to do a lot of effort. Then only I can do yoga. Concentration is a matter of effort. Now, go to word by word. Ath Yoga Anushashanam. Ath, one word. Yoga, Yoga, second word. Anushashanam has two words. Anu, Shashan. Shashan means discipline. Anu means to follow. So now go into the deeper essence and meaning of these four words. The word atha has many meanings in Sanskrit. It may mean here and now. It may mean to know and aspire and practice. What to practice? What is good for me? So, what is good for me? That is covered in Sadhan Chatushtaya, Viveka, Dharma Viveka. What is that? Shreyas and Prayas. So, you see how those principles are linked. There is another meaning of the art from the beginning to and to the end. So, yoga, we are going to learn. Atha means from the beginning to an end. Know everything of an event. Another meaning, qualified seeker is ready to receive the knowledge. So the master looks at the seeker. Okay, you all are seekers. Athi yoga no shashanam. Now I am giving a lesson to all the seekers on the path. The word conveys that we should acquire knowledge, learn, contemplate, listen, understand, and practice about yoga. Now, the second word, it is, it drops all the popular notions. I'm not saying wrong notion, I'm saying popular notion. So, popular notion is different from what is right. What Patanjali says. So, Vyasa says the word yoga here means samadhi. Yoga samadhi. He defines, he gives the commentary. The first word atha means this, and then he says, what is yoga? Vyasa says yoga samadhi. Samadhi means the highest state of mindfulness or meditation. Now, if you say the Buddha teaches mindfulness, so the eighth of the eightfold path is samadhi. Patanjali also talks about samadhi. So, there, if mindfulness leads to samadhi, and if here the meditation leads to samadhi, are they both not the same or different? No, for the sake of namesake, I say I teach Buddhist meditation. So then I say I'm teaching mindfulness. So what is the ultimate? Samadhi. Patanjali uses the Buddhist uses the word samadhi. You may write it reflective. And what Patanjali teaches? Patanjali says dhyanam, meditation. So what is the ultimate of dhyanam? Samadhi. So maybe the steps are different, but ultimately the mindfulness or meditation have different approaches reaching to the same samadhi. So that is one way to explain. So now, is yoga mindfulness meditation? So is yoga meditation mindfulness? So I'm doing together. I don't see any difference between the mindfulness and meditation according to the Buddha, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and other teachers. The popular definition of yoga is the union of two things. The critical commentary discusses individual and the supreme consciousness. There is one definition of yoga also in Upanishad, which says yopan prana yorekyam swarajo retsos tatha Surya Chandrama Sauri Yogo Jivatma Paramatmano Evam tu Dvanda Jalasya Sanyogo Yogatyuktu. So what is the translation? The union between apana and prana is yoga. The union between individual and supreme consciousness is yoga. The union between yopan prana yorekyam swaraj. The union between Shakti and Shiva is yoga. Swarajo Retsos Tatha Surya. The union between Surya and Chandraswar is yoga. What? There it is union, here it is samadhi. They don't align together. We miss the third line. Third line says, Evam tu dvanda jalasya sanyogo yogatyaktu. So the master there is explaining, because of the delusion, you experience two instead of one. To remove that delusion and ignorance is yoga. Another translation. So once you remove that delusion, the prana is united with the apana. When you remove the delusion of the two, so literal translation. So again, even when we start explaining, at present, I am different from you intellectually, emotionally, physically, gender wise. So, as long as my mind is facing to the world, it will experience the duality. So, couple of masters explain, yes, oh, I experience duality. Okay, let us start with that duality. And then gradually the master not only explains but made the seeker experience that this duality is a delusion, it is an illusion. Because the moment you face the mind towards yourself, you discover the true nature, you find the same Satchidanand everywhere, one essential nature everywhere. So now Vyasa asks, the commentator asks, union takes place only when the two things are separate. Are individual and the supreme consciousness separate to be united? Do you see that they are really separate? Or are you simply talking of supreme consciousness lives in the heaven, I live on the hell, that is the earth? So how the hell and heaven can unite together? So Vyasa is asking the question, jolting our mind. Maybe a state of mind gives the knowledge that there are two things and two things are separate, but they are not. Vyasa says mind due to wrong perception, two things are projected and known as separate, but they are not. He clears the doubt in the very beginning. He clears the doubt in the very, very beginning. He says yoga samadhi. Don't become crazy. There are two things apana, prana, surya, chandra, Shiva, Shakti, individual, supreme. Be very clear from the beginning. Keep that in mind, and we will see how we can achieve that. So find out. If you start with the two, you may land up with the three and four. But if you start with the one only, that is the only eternal truth. So you have no choice. The moment the two comes, oh, my mind is moving into some kind of ignorance from where I have to study, which teacher to go, and see where I can find that non dual consciousness, even though intellectually. What a beauty by the Vyasa, what a beauty by the Patanjali. The existence is beyond time, space, and causation. It is all pervading. It is in the body, but not the body. One Upanishad says. There is only one that is in the body, but not the body. That is in the breath, but not the breath. That is in the mind, but not the mind. That is in the intellect, but not the intellect. That is in the ego, but not the intellect, not the ego. That is present everywhere in everything, but it is not the thing to be named, has a name in the form. Why? Why? The moment I recognize you as a name in the form, I have entered into the duality. I have entered into the duality. And the duality and the division leads to conflict, and conflict leads to ignorance. And the ignorance leads me to the constant thinking. So, we have covered in the second chapter last week, darshan. We have to use the Eastern wisdom as an instrument of knowledge, not the information provided by the mind that you are different from me, I'm different from you, the world is different, world has a duality and a division. Answer is no. Now we will go why this Patanjali, why this master says yoga samadhi. He such a beautiful way. Yoga is samadhi. What is Samadhi? Is the highest state of meditation or mindfulness. So, what happens in the Samadhi? The knowledge of the self reveals. When the knowledge of the reality reveals in the mind, it brings an end to the suffering and it gives me the Ananda, Satchit Ananda. That is why Patanjali says Yoga Samadhi. How to achieve that? I have repeated it again. Eastern wisdom is an instrument of knowledge, not the mind that perceives the duality, helps us to reach to that state. Now let us go a little deeper from the teachings of the Eastern wisdom, the roots of the word yoga and samadhi. So we are now trying to understand the two words, etymology of the word. One is yoga and the other word is samadhi. Why don't we do it next time?